Hey guys, how are y'all doing? Wow, 54 people already. That is a big turnout. Thank you. Y'all must be having a boring weekend. Um, what was I going to get started with? First, oh, I remember. First thing on my mind was to show you we finally got the finished. This is what Ritual is going to look like when it arrives in your house, when you get it from the store. Uh, it's been everything on it is completely done. It's been edited. This is the absolute final finished product. And what we wanted to do, you see this little, this is the book cover. Is what they called it. It's only this big. It's just a little slip of a thing, and this is like just a hardback book. It feels sort of like cloth. The thing about it, it was supposed to be cloth. It was originally going to be cloth. One of the reasons I wanted to show you all this, other than to let you know it's finished and will be shipping out shortly. Let you know what it's going to look like, but also to show you this kind of is an act of magic. This was something that Lori said about manifesting. We were traveling somewhere. I can't remember where we were, but we went into like one of the things we always look for is to see if there are uh, magic shops in little towns and stuff that we pass through, places that might have interesting books or tools or anything else that you don't see in every other place, because some places you really can find like really unique handmade stuff that you're not going to find in every single shop you go to in all the touristy places. So we go to these bookstores, and we found a really good one. I can't remember where this was. This was probably about, I would say, at least a year ago, maybe 2 years ago. Thank you, Thomas. Um, at least a year ago, maybe 2 years ago, we went into one of those bookshops, and she saw this book on a shelf. It's called Thought Forms by someone named Annie Besant and C.W. Ledbetter. But this book, and it actually sounds kind of interesting. I'd forgotten all about it. Like, I'll read you the description of what it says. According to the Theosophical Society, thoughts and emotions create distinctive patterns of color and form in the human aura, visible only to those who are gifted with a sufficient degree of clairvoyance. Thought Forms, originally published in 1905, features 58 original color illustrations showcasing society leaders Besant and Ledbetter's impressions of the aura. This occult masterpiece has inspired a century of artists, thinkers, and spiritualists from Kandinsky to Mondrian. So it actually sounds really interesting, but whenever she saw it, she liked it because it's a hardback. Well, this one is actually cloth. It was a cloth back book, and ours was going to be cloth like this originally, but had something to do with COVID. So, they said they weren't able to get the material or something. I can't remember exactly what it was, but it feels almost like cloth now. I mean, it's got a really great feel to it. But this was what inspired that. Just seeing this book with this little dust flap. And she picked this book up. Like I said, this was at least, let me think. It had to be 2 years ago, because we hadn't even started writing rituals yet. We've been working on rituals for almost the past year. We've been working on this book for probably at least 9 months. So this would have happened probably 2 years ago. When she saw this book, she picked it up and said, "I want to do a book like this." For whatever reason, she just liked the look of it. She liked the feel of it. She said, "I want to do a book like this." And then there it is. That's where this came from, and it ended up manifesting pretty much exactly like this. One red and one green, slightly different sizes. But it was one of those times whenever she actually manifested exactly what she wanted. So we keep that book now, looking at it, even aside from the material in it or whatever, looking at it as one of those things that reminds us once again that magic works. See what y'all are talking about. Oh, that's another thing. Thank you, Thomas. Thomas reminded me that we did the Duncan Trussell podcast. That's out now. You can listen to that if you want to. Lori and I both did it. Duncan Trussell is the guy who did the Midnight Gospel show that a lot of y'all on here now probably found me through. He was the guy who created that and asked me to be part of it. I had no idea how big it was going to be at the time. I mean, I hear from people still all over the world who are still watching that show for the first time all the time. I hear from other people who have said they've watched it over and over. I had no idea whenever I went in to do it how big it was going to end up being. I just thought it sounded like fun. Getting to work with Duncan sounded like fun. I had loved doing the podcast with him. And I was excited whenever they told us we were going to do it again, going to talk to him again for this one. It's, even like trying to promote stuff aside, it's always just actually really fun talking to him. Let me think. What else was there? Essentially, there was one more thing. Oh, I'm getting ready to leave again. I've kind of reached a point where, I've told y'all before, I feel the most content whenever I'm driving, whenever I'm behind the wheel of a car. Ever since leaving New York, like I haven't really felt like I have roots anywhere. And I've been here in New Orleans. Honestly, I can't even remember anymore. It seems like about a month. It's long enough that I'm starting to miss being out on the road again. So I am leaving here first thing in the morning, and we're going back out on the road. Before I come back here, we're going to be making our way to Washington, D.C. for the Mormon Temple open house that they're having there. And hopefully we will be able to get some footage of the inside of it to show you. Just trying to keep up with what y'all are talking about. Yes, Dale says, was that all from your first podcast with Duncan? It actually was, yeah. All the Midnight Gospel episode, the first one, was from the first podcast we did with him. No, Patrick says, did you help direct the animation on your episode? They kept it completely hidden. They didn't want me to see it until it was completely finished and they had the finished product done, so that I could see exactly what it was going to be like. So I did not even get to see it until it was completely finished. And then I honestly probably saw it a little ways after everybody else. You know, most people I think saw when it first came out, and I think I waited for like I can't even remember anymore, to be honest. It's been a while. At any rate, I thought tonight we would pick up where we left off in the past couple of sessions, where essentially I've been describing like my path through magic, how I learned what I learned, and the exercises I was doing, and where I was at, and why I was doing them, and all this kind of stuff. So whenever we left off talking, I was talking about how when I was in prison, uh, I had reached a point. By the time I left, the day before I walked out of prison, I was uh, sometimes doing ritual work for up to 8 hours a day. Like I had completely, almost even lost track of the fact that I was in prison. As crazy as that sounds, because like what I was experiencing while I was doing magic was so amazing to me, and you know, it was like everything that I had ever wanted in that life finally had a meaning. You know, I think honest to God, I think a lot of what makes most people so miserable is that their life, they don't have any kind of meaning in their life. It's almost like they feel like there's no point to it. You know, it's just a series of events that you have to do until the day you die, like, you know, go to school and get a job, do whatever it is they're thinking of. I don't know. They don't realize that there's more to life in this realm than that. So of course they're miserable. You know, I can remember being young enough before I really took off on this journey. I can remember being young enough when I couldn't detect anything in this world other than the physical material world, what you can touch, see, smell, taste. You know, it wasn't one of those cases for me. You know, you'll hear these people, and maybe it's true, maybe it's ego. I don't know. Could be both. Could be one or the other in certain cases. But you'll hear people say, like, you know, I was born a psychic, from, and I'm from seven. Like all the women in my family have been psychic for the past 7 generations. Uh, that wasn't that was never me or my family, and I wasn't born with any special blessings or anything else. I started off doing this just like every other person that just hopes that there's something else. You know, most people like wish and hope that there's something else outside just the physical world, but they don't really have any kind of experience that tells them that it is real. So everything they do is just kind of on hope, hoping it is one day. I remember being like that, like when I was young, like like wondering, is there a God or is there not a God? And you know, the path out of all of that stuff for me was magic. Once I started the journey of high magic, there was no more of that kind of angst and anxiety for me. You know, like those the spiritual angst that people go through so much in life that makes them miserable. People just desperately wanting to know something. Once I really started off down the path of magic, um, I never felt that again. I knew there was something else, and I was off on this amazing adventure. My life suddenly had a purpose. It had a point, and it was a purpose and a point that even being confined inside that prison cell, I could still do it. I didn't need anything. I didn't have to go anywhere. I had everything I needed to do the work inside me. And all I had was a lot of time on my hands and a lot of reason for doing this, which was, of course, whenever you're hearing about magic, one of the things you always hear about is that it allows you to shape reality to some extent or another. And that's one of the draws that pulls most people to it. You think, if I could do magic, my life would be better than this. My life would have a point and a purpose. And I had that even when I was in prison because of magic. But the way it started out, like the different things that I would do, of course, in the very beginning, there's the stuff that they tell everybody to do. Like any book on magic you read, they're going to tell you do the lesser banishing ritual of the pentagram or the lesser invoking ritual of the pentagram and the middle pillar. So those were the ones I started all out doing. And I did them over and over and over relentlessly, because part of it was that I was starting to see energy. Like when I was focusing on myself and inhaling and seeing these spheres of light glowing brighter and brighter, of one day I started to realize I'm not just visualizing this, I'm seeing this. Like I can see the energy of this. It's not about just visualizing anymore. I can perceive on some other level, other than just in my imagination, that something is happening here. So that made me excited. It was like, even though I didn't know what all was happening and I didn't understand it all, nowhere near understand it all, I knew that I was experiencing something, and that told me there's something to this stuff. So we talked on here before, and also if you've read John Michael Greer's book, Learning Ritual Magic, it culminates in a self-initiation ritual. And in the self-initiation ritual that he gives, and I did a kind of like abbreviated version of it. I can't remember where I put it at, if it was in maybe Angels and Archangels, or maybe I didn't. Maybe I've never put it into writing before. I can't remember. But essentially, during this initiation process ritual, the self-initiation ritual, this is the one where you get yourself a glass, and we talked about how it could be anything, any kind, plastic cup, get something like this off of Amazon. You can use a regular kitchen glass. All that matters is that you get a little bit of water in it. And you do the lesser invoking of the pentagram, invoke all four angels of the elements around you, and then take the chalice around with a little bit of water in it and pray that all of them let their blessing descend on it. And then you drink it, and you see all of that energy saturate your aura. There's another version of that you want to do when, like, starting off doing the middle pillar and the lesser banishing ritual, the pentagram. Those are the things that everybody that really wants to pursue this should start off with. Those are the two exercises that those were the first ones that changed my life. But then what you're supposed to do is you're supposed to start experimenting with this stuff. That's the thing. Most people don't experiment. Most people just do, and this isn't, criticizing them or anything. I'm just saying it will hold you back. Is they only do like exactly what's in the book, exactly what's told to them in the book, instead of like messing with it a little bit. A lot of it, you're going to find this stuff. You'll find this material in Golden Dawn stuff, but some of it also you have to branch out and start, like really researching and thinking about how you can use this stuff in other ways. What I mean by this, like another way you can use it, that self-initiation ritual. There's also the reason I called this live stream Elemental Communion is because that's the grade work of the elemental grades that you're doing when you're trying to purify and strengthen the parts of your soul, the parts of your consciousness that is represented by the four elements. You can work with each one of them individually, and you're supposed to, because you're working on different parts of your consciousness with each different one that you work with. So let me show you what this looks like. It makes it easier if you can just see what I'm saying instead of me trying to describe this. Instead of invoking all four angels around you, the first step that you would do is you would go through a period of time when you were just invoking earth. And when you're invoking earth, instead of your chalice of water, you use a piece of bread. You can either use a piece of bread or you can use a pinch of salt, both because they symbolize the element of earth. Instead of invoking all four angels around you, first off, whenever you draw the invoking pentagrams, you charge all four pentagrams in all four directions with the God name associated with the element that you're wanting to invoke instead of the four different directions. So say, for example, since you're using earth first and the divine name associated with earth is Aghe-La, then that's what you would charge all four stars with, because that's the divine name associated with earth. Charge all four pentagrams, draw all four invoking pentagrams, charge all of them with Aghe-La. And then I don't have it right here on me, but if some of y'all know in the past, we talked a million times. We've talked a million times about, the different stages of how you're invoking stuff to go from the elemental level to the planetary level to the astrological level, all of that. What were we talking about? I lost it. Give me just a second and come back. Somebody remind me, what were we talking about? Oh, elemental communion. Right. So on one of these charts, I put it on here for y'all before. There's it's a series of circles, like each one inside the next. And there were four names in each direction. Well, what that represents is, how like in the spheres on the tree of life, there are levels of power. Like there's the angelic choir, and then there's the archangel, and then there's the God name or the God form associated with each sphere on the tree. That's like a hierarchy, like the God, the way God manifest in that particular sphere is the highest form of that energy you can invoke. The next, that's on a level closer to us, is the archangels. And this is one of the reasons they say in the beginning why you're always taught to work with archangels, is because they're on a closer level of reality to us than God is. So it's easier for us to communicate with them than it is with God in whatever form it's visualized for each sphere. Anyway, there's also a hierarchy for the elements. For each element, like, you know how we normally invoke Raphael before me, Gabriel behind me, Michael on my right hand, Uriel on my left hand. Well, that's just the archangels. For each direction, for each element, there is also an angel, there's a ruler, and there's a king. What you could do, what one of the things you do when you're taking in earth energy, when you're doing this earth communion ritual, you're taking in a big chunk of that energy because it's going to affect you in some way. What you'll discover as you do these rituals is they all affect you in different ways. So if you do an earth communion, it will affect you in certain ways. If you do a fire communion, it will affect you in different ways. If you do an air communion, something else totally different. So I'll give you an example of what I mean by this, like the earth communion. First off, those 4 names, the archangel, the angel, the ruler, and the king, you invoke those before you, behind you, and on each side of you, exactly like you did the elemental archangels, only you're just going to use one element's correspondences. Like you'll say, before me, the archangel, behind me, the angel, on my right hand, the ruler, on my left hand, the king. And you're visualizing, I always visualize them as being pretty much looking like the archangel, but smaller and not quite as powerful. But you visualize all 4 of those around you. And in this case, they're the ones that correspond with Earth. Like Uriel is who you start with, Uriel, the archangel of Earth. But then you take this piece of bread or this pinch of salt and you go to each of them. You walk around the circle clockwise. You go to the archangel Uriel and say, Uriel, archangel and guardian of the north, ruler of the element of earth, may your power, your blessings, and your favor descend upon this communion in order to protect, guide, illuminate, and bless me. And then you go to all the other 3 and you do the same thing with the bread or with the salt. When you're done, after you've gone to all 3, you ask God to bless it. You're your own priest. You're going to visualize a white light at the top of the universe. And as you're praying, stating your intention, you're going to inhale after every line, and you're going to visualize that light at the top of the universe glow brighter and brighter. And then you're going to see it, like the shaft of light from it, come down and saturate the bread or the salt that you're holding, and then you're going to eat it. So the way that this manifests, what I mean by different ways we'll do different things. A friend of mine, a really good friend, who, when he was first starting off on the path of magic, that's exactly right, Kyle, Forlac and Carob. And I know y'all are asking some questions, and I'm going to go back and look at them in just a minute. But I want to keep going with this, or I'll forget what we're talking about. What were we just talking about? The elemental correspondence. Okay, a friend of mine. So he starts doing this kind of earth communion ritual. And he said at first he thought, I'm not really experiencing anything. I don't really feel any different in any way. I can't tell that anything's really changed. But then one day he realized out of the blue that for like the past month while he had been doing that ritual, like he had been doing tons of stuff that he hadn't done in years, like go camping go hiking, just doing stuff outdoors. Like he had found himself over the past month doing a lot of outdoor activities that he had not done in years. And he realized, the only way I know to describe this, like the way you make this connection, if you've ever had food poisoning and it's made you really sick, a lot of times your body will tell you exactly what it was that gave you food poisoning because you won't be able to eat that food again. Like you won't even be able to think about it without feeling nauseous after that, at least for a long time. Where was I going with this? Oh, the elemental communion. I completely lost my train of thought. So, that in the same way, like the food poisoning thing, um, it's kind of the same way. Like he said, he felt immediately, he knew, oh my God, this is actually working. This is actually doing something. He said from that point on, he was like, sign me up. I want to know more of this. I want to do more of this. I want to see like where this is leading, what else is possible. In that moment, he no longer had any doubt that this was working. It just took him a little bit to make the connection of how it was manifesting. It's like I've said before, a lot of times something will manifest like so close in front of your nose that you don't even realize it's come to pass sometimes until it's already been there for a while. And then you look back one day and you're like, oh, I did magic for that. The way it happened for me, when I started to do it, I was in prison and I thought, okay, I'm gonna do the grade work exactly like you were assigned this grade work. Like when you first start out, you're in Malkuth and you're learning about the element of earth. So you start off doing your earth invocations onto the piece of bread or the pinch of salt, whatever it is, and consuming that. And then you go through the other three elements. For me, when I started doing the earth one, I was in prison. And this is around the time period. I had probably been doing that ritual for probably 2 weeks every single day. I would do the lesser banishing ritual of the pentagram, the lesser banishing ritual of the hexagram, then the lesser invoking ritual of the pentagram with just the earth names and the earth corresponding entities, get them to bless the thing and then eat it. And then, well, no, I take that back. Then do the middle pillar first, and then take all the energy that I get in from doing the middle pillar and put that into the bread. And then take it around and get it blessed by all the angels and then eat it. I've been doing that for probably 2 weeks when one day I was allowed to have one visitor a week for 3 hours. And it was Lori every week. So one day I'm getting ready to go down to see her. She's at the prison. And I lean over and get my shoe and go to put my shoe on. And I'll remember it for the rest of my life. But it's really hard to describe this in a way that like conveys the impact that it had on me and on my life. I realized for the very first time in my life, I am completely and absolutely in the present moment. I'm not thinking about the past. I'm not thinking about the future. I'm not lost in a daydream. I'm not philosophizing or having, conversations of any sort going on inside my head. I'm just here putting on my shoe. And whenever you think that, then it breaks the spell. It's over because you're thinking again. You're not just experiencing the moment anymore, you're thinking. But I don't know how long I had been doing it before I realized it. I could have been doing it for days, or I could have only been doing it for a second or two. All I know is I realized I was doing it. And in a weird way, it was almost like suddenly realizing that like you can fly or something. I mean, that's the level of impact that it had on me. I hadn't got that from all those years of Zen or any kind of meditation techniques or anything else. I had started to think that that stuff does not really exist. Those different states of consciousness that people describe, I started to think maybe that's all just belief and maybe people deluding themselves or whatever. I'd started to think it's not real. Wasn't trying to achieve it or attain it or experience it or anything. Like I said, didn't even know it was a thing at the time. But magic allowed me to experience that just as a side effect of doing the rituals. That was when I knew. That was when I had that moment, just like my friend had of, oh my God, this is actually doing something to me. This is actually working. Sign me up. I want more. So, like ingesting the element of earth and strengthening the level of your or the aspect of your consciousness that is connected to the element of earth, it manifests differently in different people. Like it could manifest in a way where you find yourself wanting to do more outdoor activities all of a sudden, or it may manifest itself in you suddenly being more grounded in your body, which is what being in the moment ultimately is. It's being in our body, being present in our body. So there's another one you can do, which is the air communion. When you do the air communion, you use incense. And I always just use charcoal disc. Like I didn't have incense when I was in prison when I was doing this. So back then, the way that I would do it is this is what I mean about the empty hand or the open hand technique. I just absorbed it straight into my aura. But the way you can do it out here, if you want to use incense and do it like a traditional kind of way, you take the incense, like preferably frankincense, Hojari frankincense, and you take it, you charge all four pentagrams with the divine name associated with air, which in this case is Yehovah. Charge all four pentagrams with Yehovah, and then you invoke the archangel of air before you, Raphael, the angel of air behind you, the ruler of air on your right hand, the king of air on your left hand, and then you take this incense around and you ask all of them to bless it. Whenever you light it, like I prefer using those charcoal discs. Whenever you light the charcoal discs and you put the incense that you've blessed with air on it, don't breathe the stuff up. Don't, this, my lungs are horrible now. A lot of it had to do with breathing up tear gas when I was in prison. The guards used to go crazy with tear gas sometimes, and it used to, you'd be locked in a barracks for hours breathing this stuff in. You've got to hold a wet towel over your face, and even then, it still gets in. It caused me that sort of thing caused me a lot of damage when I was in there, a lot of lung damage. So I don't breathe the stuff up. But what I would do is put it on the burning charcoal disc, and when it starts to fume, like I would hold my breath and like waft it over my face, almost like I'm like washing or baptizing my face in the smoke of the incense. Whenever you're doing that, You may find this is a whole different kind, this is a whole different level or a whole different part of your consciousness you're using with air than with earth. So something completely different is going to happen to you than you experienced with earth. Like, for example, when you're invoking air, you may suddenly find yourself getting interested in some new subject that had never even occurred to you before. And all of a sudden you're researching it on the internet and ordering books about it and watching documentaries on it and all that kind of stuff. Because when you do that, you're learning. And when you're learning, you're exercising your mind, which is what air is associated with. Air is associated with the intellect. Or you may find yourself getting interested in honestly, it can be pretty much anything that causes you to grow intellectually. Even things that don't seem to make you super smart in some way, maybe doing something like improving hand-eye coordination, something. It will manifest in some way that will have an effect on your consciousness, on your mind. The same way you can do the same thing with fire. Traditionally, you would use a candle. You would charge all 4 pentagrams with the divine name associated with fire, which is Adonai, and then invoke the archangel, angel, ruler, and elemental king of fire, and then take the candle around and ask all of them to let their power, blessings, and favor descend on it. And then whenever you light it, like the traditional way, what you would do is kind of hold your hands cupped around it so that you're feeling the flame, you're feeling the heat on your hands, and you're visualizing that you're absorbing like that heat in the form of red light. That's the red light coming out of the candle. You're absorbing it. And the way I used to do it, here it is. This is one of the things that started to help me grow. One of the things, this is why I like talking about this stuff with y'all, because it makes me remember things. One thing was using the Tipureth Center nonstop. That was one of the ways that I found invaluable of doing this stuff. So for example, when I'm holding my hands around the candle flame, what I would do first is I'm holding my hands around the flame and I'm visualizing the flame as being like a sphere of burning light, of burning energy. I inhale into my Tipureth Center, see it glow as bright gold as I can make it glow. And when I exhale, I see a tendril of golden energy extend down my arm, out my hand, and into the sphere that the candle is around, or that's around the candle. And then whenever I'll do the same thing with this arm. Inhale, let the golden tendril go down this arm, out this palm, and into the sphere of light. And then every time I inhale, I see myself pulling red light from that candle flame back up my arm into my Tipureth Center. Every time I inhale, I pull it in, just like I pull oxygen in. Every time I exhale, I let red light radiate out of my Tipureth Center, all out through my aura and all out through my physical body. So I'm pulling in the light from the candle with every inhalation, hold, and every time I exhale, I'm letting it flood out through my aura and through my physical body. Whenever you do that, like what I started to experience, I didn't have a candle when I was in prison. So I would do it all entirely through visualizing that I was absorbing the energy directly into my aura. That's how you can do this if you have nothing, if you have to even hide what you're doing. For example, with fire, you invoke all of the fire correspondences around you. And then you just walk around the circle to each of them and ask that their power, blessings, and favor be allowed to descend on you. And when you do it, visualize that light is coming down from the top of the universe, coming down like the angel is letting it come down on you and filling you up from head to toe with red light. That'll work too. You don't need anything. There's nothing you absolutely have to have. No material tools to do this work. You can do it with absolutely nothing. Oh, but what fire did for me when I was doing it back then was in a roundabout way, I want to say that it made me feel more alive than I had ever felt before, maybe in my life, just physically vibrant. Like I had life force flooding through me. But it wasn't just invoking fire. It was the product of doing all of these rituals, including the middle pillar over and over every day. But the fire was what I think it was the driving force behind making me learn all these things and do all these things in an insatiable way. What were we talking about? I was just reading a couple of y'all's questions and I lost my train of thought. I see some really good ones on here. We haven't done just a question and answer session in a long time. Oh, yeah. Feeling more alive than I had felt in a long time. And I think, a huge part of that was just learning to use my energy body, learning to use my energy system. Most people don't know, to them, the only part of themselves that exists is the physical body. Those other parts of themselves are being starved. They may feed the physical body, but they're starving their soul. Their soul's not getting very much sustenance. And whenever it does get sustenance, you just feel reinvigorated, rejuvenated. I can remember being in pain. This is really hard to describe, but I can remember nights when I was so in pain in every little way. Like you just feel like your teeth hurt, your spine hurts, your hips ache. When you get up first thing in the morning, it's like your hands don't really, it's a low grade agony that starts to spread through you. And once I got the hang of doing this stuff, like using my energy body, like constantly, I would constantly work with that Tipperest center nonstop. Like I would form. You can do this with anything. Just practice. Like put a glass of water on the other side of the room, and don't touch it. Stay on the other side of the room from it. Inhale into your Tipperest center. Inhale, see it glow brighter gold. When you exhale, see like a tendril of light go down your arm, out your hand, and across the room and attach to the glass of water. And then every time you inhale, see yourself pulling in light into your Tipperest center. Hold it, and whenever you exhale, see it go down your arm, out your hand, and into the glass of water. See it turning the glass of water gold. Practice in ways like that, like you can do it from across the room. Do it holding the glass in your hands and see the tentacle come down and connect. Do it with it across the room. See the tendril come out and connect. Constantly experiment and play with doing energy work like that. That's the number one thing that's going to make you grow. Joe Hawkins asked an interesting question. What I wanted to ask was, now that you have access to materials to use in ritual that you didn't have in prison, do you notice a difference? Yeah, Yeah. Oh yeah. Yeah. Absolutely. Both good and not so much. One thing I notice for me personally is that I feel the magic much more intensely. Like say for example, when I'm drawing the pentagrams and I'm inhaling and feeling the earth and then thrusting your hand through the center of the pentagram and vibrating and all that. Um, what were we talking about? Feeling the energy. I remember that. What was it? I remember Joe. Oh, yeah. So if I do that, I I can feel the energy much more intensely than if I use a wand or a dagger or a sword or any of that kind of stuff. I can feel it better using just my hands, but I think that's because when I learned all of this stuff, I learned it using only my hands, and that's all I had for years. By the time I started using tools, I'd already been doing this stuff for so that it had become second nature to do it without anything. So when I did start to use something, it felt like I couldn't feel the energy as much. Like when I would use a wand, it felt like I couldn't quite I it just felt more distant in some way. And of course it is. It's because you're doing it with something that's not an extension of your body. But the benefit to that, the side effect benefit is that the more you use a tool, the more energy it accumulates on it and in it over time, so that it adds more power to your rituals whenever you're doing rituals with it in the future. Hold on one second, guys. I'm going to like turn these back a little bit because I can see y'all been talking a lot and I've been deliberately not looking at your comments. Um, just because I didn't want to forget what I was talking about any more than I already was. So I'm just rolling your comments back a little bit, seeing what y'all are talking about. Oh, what? That was a good one. Who says that? Oh, Dale says, what can you do for the spirit element? You kind of incorporate the spirit element into all the other communions. Like after you get all the angels, the archangels, everybody involved, after you get all their blessings on it, you pray to the white light at the top of the universe. And I can't remember the thing I used to say. Like now, I don't even formulate words anymore. I'm just seeing it glowing brighter and brighter and brighter, and knowing that when I bring it down on whatever I'm bringing it down on, that it's going to be programmed with the purpose that I'm desiring of it. Um, but I did used to say prayers. I did used to use words, and I would say things like, and this is a Golden Dawn prayer. I can't remember the whole thing in exactly the order that it was in, but it was like, "Hail unto thee, whom nature hath not formed. Hail unto thee, Lord of the light and of the dark. Hail unto thee, vast and mighty one. Let your power, your blessings, and your favor descend upon this candle, piece of bread, incense, whatever it is." So you're going to do that every single time you do this communion ritual. Remember when I was talking about how a friend of mine told me one time how don't be concerned with the grade system. You just try to wring every ounce of experience that you possibly can out of every step of this process. That's how you do that. That's how you wring every ounce of knowledge and growth that you possibly can out of the elemental grades. Doing those acts of communion like that and keeping track of what you experience. And I'm going to be another thing I'll be honest with y'all about. You find a lot of books out there talking about elemental magic. There's a lot of books that the entirety of the focus, they don't go into anything beyond elemental magic. Like if you want this, and if you're trying to do this, you invoke fire. If you're trying to do this, you invoke air, water, whatever. There's no planetary stuff in it. There's no anything. It focuses all entirely on the elements. And usually even in witchcraft, do that a lot in the beginner books, focus on the elements. Um, Honestly, I've never felt that the element doing magic using the elements was as powerful as doing magic with the planets or the the constellation angels, invoking any of the constellations. For me, doing elemental stuff was always the weakest experiences that I had in magic. They were, I mean, like I said, they were still life changing. But I mean, like if I use them to manifest, if I'm trying to manifest something, create something, I know that sounds crazy. But if I'm trying to like bring some specific thing to pass in my life that I need to invoke a particular kind of energy for, I usually don't do elemental magic. I'm probably going to go straight to the tree of life and invoke whatever energy is on the tree of life that I need. That being said, I don't mean that there's nothing to get out of this. There absolutely is. As like I said, I think for the elements, I got the most change. I experienced the most change in myself, not in manifesting things externally. For that, tree of life is definitely stronger. And you could also do this same thing if you wanted to with the tree of life. But for those, you would be using hexagrams. And that was another thing I started doing in there. When I started practicing the greater hexagram ritual, I used a glass of water for all of it. Like when I started invoking Yesod, I would invoke the archangel, the planetary angel. Like for Yesod, I would invoke Gabriel of Yesod. I would invoke Gabriel of the moon, and sometimes I use the planetary or the Olympic spirits. This is an invaluable little tool. If you can find this sigil somewhere, this thing helps me out all the time just because it's got like basic core. This is my like patent pinnacle, whatever you want to call it. Lay stuff on it to be charged. But the Olympic spirits, you can see they are in these little triangles here. And you can see the Olympics, the planet is listed here inside the circle, like this little circle in the middle, that's the planet. So you can look and see who the Olympic spirit for each planet is. Like, for example, the sun is Ach. What's this? Venus over here? Yep, Venus, Hagith. So you can use Olympic spirits whenever you're doing this too. Invoke the archangel, invoke the planetary angel, invoke the Olympic spirits, and invoke at least one of the angelic choir associated with the sphere on the tree of life. Like, for example, for Yesod, it would be the angelic choir of cherubs, the cherub angels. They're the angelic choir. So you would inhale, see a giant purple one expand over here on your left-hand side, vibrate cherub. Go through and get all of the lunar entities to put their blessings on the cup of water and then drink it. That one in particular, one of the things you'll see that it does that most people experience some sort of results from is something to do with psychic sensitivity, psychic perception. Like if you invoke the moon like that and drink like lunar water, it's moon water. It's literally moon water. It's what you're drinking. Water that's charged with the essence of the moon. You consume that, and it has certain effects on you that invoking fire doesn't have, or invoking elements doesn't have. One of the things that invoking Yesod does is a lot of times people find it really makes their dreams become active because it's connected to the unconscious and the subconscious mind. So they'll start having really odd dreams. It would not be completely out of the realm of possibility to have what people sometimes call prophetic dreams, where you dream about something that's going to happen. Sometimes it's just a more active dream life, like you just have a ton of dreams every night. In some way, it's not entirely unheard of for it to stimulate dream activity. Another thing is it increases psychic perception, your ability to perceive and work with subtle energies. So you can go through all of the planets in the same way, and you should. That's one of the things they used to teach. Like, that's how you get everything you can out of every level. Let's see what y'all are asking about again. I'm just sitting here rambling. Dale says, can you talk about going through periods or cycles of time with only banishing? I think there's no one that I know that does magic. No one that I've ever come across that at some point or another doesn't get tired. Tired of constantly pressing onward to the next thing, next ritual or whatever. Sometimes people just want to relax, like slack a little. During those times, it's important, even if you're not pushing forward, it's important that you still do just enough, that you still do something to keep your hand in at it, to keep your practice in, even if all that is banishing. Like, even if the only thing you're going to do is the lesser banishing ritual, the pentagram, once a day, if all you're going to do is one little thing, if you can't make yourself do hours and hours of ritual work a day, or if you go through periods of time where you just need to rest a little bit, the one thing you should still keep doing is banishing, because it's like basic energetic hygiene, like taking a shower or brushing your teeth. It'll keep you healthy. It'll keep you in practice. Even just doing that will still kind of keep you growing and changing to a small extent, years down the road. But just doing banishings, there were times when I've done banishings back to back to back to back. If you're really angry, if you get angry about something, and here's the thing, you got to and I'm going to shut up in 1 minute. You have to make yourself want to do this, because when you do get angry, the last thing you're going to want to do is go start doing magic. You're going to want to give the person a piece of your mind, or you're going to want to think, sit around and think about whatever happened over and over again. Rehash it. You have to be able to make yourself snap out of that. Even if you don't want to, make yourself do magic. Make yourself do the lesser banishing of the pentagram, at least. If not also the lesser banishing ritual, the hexagram. If you want maximum impact, do both of them back to back. Do the lesser banishing ritual, the pentagram, followed immediately by the lesser banishing ritual of the hexagram. And then turn around and follow it again immediately with another lesser banishing ritual, the pentagram, and then another banishing ritual, the hexagram. And then turn around one more time and go through both of them again, so that you've done both of them back to back to back 3 times. You will find by the time you get to the end of that third one, there is no anger left in you anymore. Like, you're calm, you're centered, you're focused. It works miraculously in that way. But you're also just cleaning and strengthening your soul. read what y'all are saying. Yeah. Leela says, if everyone did the LBRP when they get mad, I cannot imagine the collective positive benefit to reducing crime, especially violent crime. Not only that, not only would it probably reduce crime, but it would probably also increase everything that you want to increase in your neighborhood and society. Like people would start creating more art. And by art, I mean things that go into all aspects of life. Like they would start designing, clothes in ways that are beautiful and amazing, or preparing meals that are kind of mind blowing, and just the sensations and the taste and the experience of that. Like all of these things constitute art, culinary arts. People would be more creative and productive if they were engaging in this stuff. Yes, we the people, again, bringing something good. Analysis of the key in between adds amazing power. That's exactly right. Another ritual. I mean, most people are only going to do the bare minimum, but if you really, really want to like add so much power to this that it's insane, you do the lesser banishing ritual. I mean, the analysis of the keyword. Like do the lesser banishing ritual, the pentagram, lesser banishing of the hexagram, analysis of the keyword. Lesser banishing ritual of the pentagram, lesser banishing ritual of the hexagram, analysis of the keyword. Like add it in between each time. And yes, that alone, if you do that alone at least once a week, in addition to your daily practice, like push yourself to go through that routine 3 times back to back to back at least once a week, you will see radical, dramatic transformation in yourself and in your life in a very short period of time. If we just do those 3, one of the things that made me even start doing videos, like talking to you guys on here. Like I can remember when I first got out of prison, I had never seen the internet before. Never. I kind of couldn't even fathom it. People would tell me like, you can look up anything on it. You can type in any word and find stuff on whatever you want to read about on the internet. So of course, the first thing I did whenever I got out was start looking up magic. I wanted to see whatever would pop up on magic. Where was I going with this? I had a point. The internet, magic, why would I be talking about this? Somebody remind me. Can anyone remind me? What were we talking about? Internet magic. No. I'm not sure what internet magic would have been. Oh, LVX says, is there a Discord for this group? Yeah, radical changes, drastic changes. If someone on here has the link for the Discord group, would you post it? Oh, thank you, Peacock Angel. Perfect. That's what I needed to hear. Says I was talking about why I started making videos. So I started looking up magic. It's the first thing I started looking up on the internet whenever I got out of prison. I started seeing YouTube. I found this guy talking about magic. I can't remember who the hell this guy is. This guy's not anybody famous at all. This guy, like, he's not a famous like occult author. He's not anybody that anybody's ever heard of. This guy, I can remember, it's a skinny white kid with like kind of spiky hair, like almost like from the 80s spiky, but it's a modern video. Like I would say this video was made very late 90s. I saw it in 2011, so I can't say for sure, but it was not an 80s video. This kid just had like spiked up kind of like 80s hair. Um, Black hair, really pale skin, and he's slumped down in this chair and he's talking about doing the middle pillar and the lesser banishing. He only did 2 videos. He did one video on the lesser banishing ritual of the pentagram, and he did one video on the middle pillar. This kid's sitting on a farm somewhere. Like, I can remember one of the videos starts off where he's sitting there looking at a desk and you can see a window behind him. And he says at one point, "You see that stuff out there on the ground? That's horse shit. As soon as I get finished here, I'm going to go out there and have to shovel that. Because I live out here on a farm in the middle of nowhere." But he started talking about, but this is what I mean. He's talking about this stuff like he's not giving a big speech. You know, he's not doing this, you know, this formal class. He's not doing this, you know, profound, you know, proclamation. He's just talking. He's talking to the video like we're sitting here talking right now. But he started talking about the effects of doing these rituals on himself. And he said something at one point. He says, "One of the things I noticed about doing these rituals is it will make you stop being a piece of shit. Most of the people I know in the world are pieces of shit. And I used to be too, until I started doing this work. And it changed me. It woke me up." And I loved that kid. I mean, that was one of like the realest things, and like the, you know, like you hear about somebody giving a testimony. That was like listening to this guy give his testimony. And whenever he was describing how to do it, he just had a piece of white paper and a pen, and he's drawing like the middle pillar on this figure with the names written next to it. I went back and watched those videos. You know, you see how bad my memory is now, but I that's why I can't even remember this guy's name anymore. But I went back and watched those videos for probably the next year. I would just go back and watch them from time to time. And they didn't have very many views either. I mean, these were views, like I can remember when I first saw them, like these things had like maybe 35 views. You know, we're not even talking about hundreds, like 35 views total. Just reading what y'all are talking about. But I'm going to shut up because we've been on here for an hour and 15 minutes already. And we'll pick up from here, hopefully next time a little more coherently. My thoughts are all over the place tonight just because we've had a lot going on lately. And we're packing up right now, getting ready to hit the road again, which I am very excited about and very antsy to do. So I'm a little bit brain dead. Thank you guys. Thank you for wishing me safe travels and whatnot. Yeah. So I am going to, thank you, Peacock Angel. I'm going to take my computer with me when I'm going on the road so that we'll be able to do live streams while we're in the middle of this process also. So I'll be taking y'all with me, and I'll talk to you on here again in a couple of days. Forgive me for being all over the place tonight. Oh, one last thing I wanted to say also, thank you. I saw we've got a bunch of new people because of the new Duncan Trussell interview. A bunch of y'all are just coming to us on here over the past couple of days. Thank you so much for wanting to come on here and be with me if you're new. And thank you so much if you've been on here with me since the very beginning for still humoring me, even during these times like tonight, whenever my brain's going blank every couple of seconds. Okay, guys. Thank you, Leanna. David Woodard says everyone should look up neurotoxin elimination protocol. I don't know what that is, but it might be a thing that you want to look up and look into. Thank you, Azael. Okay, guys, I'm going to get off of here, finish packing up, and get ready to get out of here. I love y'all, and I'll talk to you again in just a few days.